5 downloads. That's it. That is all episode 1 had when I checked on Wednesday morning. And my first thought was, perfect. No one's going to even notice if I re-record it. Actually, no. My first thought was, this must mean the universe wants me to re-record it. Welcome back to the bet. Every journey starts with a choice, and mine is a bet. For 1 year, I'm gambling on energy over strategy. No more forcing and no pushing. Just the courage to show up and see what happens when reality becomes my playground. This isn't a podcast. It's a real-time experiment in the lab of my life. Welcome to the bet. The bet officially launched out into the podcast world last Tuesday, September 2nd. Wednesday morning, I wake up at 5 a.m. in what I can only describe as a hell no moment. I can't go back to sleep, so I decide to listen to episode 1 on Spotify. Experience it like a listener would. 2 minutes in, and I want to die. I'm thinking, this is so damn boring. Who is going to want to listen to this? Who wants to sit here and listen to a woman just talk to herself like this? And then the really fun thoughts start to show up. Who does she think she is putting this out there? There's millions of podcasts. The last thing this world needs is another podcast, especially one with a woman droning on about her personal life experiments. Then, boom, cue the arrival of the childhood memory. Being told I talk too much. All these little voices from the past just flooding in at 5 a.m. But here's what really made my stomach turn. It wasn't that the episode was boring. It was that I kept hearing myself say over and over, this is either going to be my greatest success or my biggest failure. I must have said it 5 different ways throughout that episode. I was hedging. I was apologizing in advance for potentially failing. I was giving myself an out before I even began. And as I was listening to it over again, my energy was screaming at me, fuck that. That is not who you are. You're supposed to be building $1 million business using pure energy. Why are you even entertaining the thought of failure? Why are you highlighting it? And why the hell are you giving it airtime in your very first episode? I was pissed at myself. Pissed that what was supposed to be this grand initiation of my year-long experiment started out with entirely the wrong energy. So by 7 a.m., I am in full fix-it mode. This was recording attempt number 11. 11. I had already re-recorded episode 1 10 times before releasing it, and here I am ready to do it again. But this time, I'm in my mode, right? I'm going to do it right. I'm going to be uber professional. I've got foam panels all over my desk because I keep hearing this reverb in my voice. I am deep in tutorials about editing software. I'm downloading trials of Adobe Audition. I'm learning about noise gates and compression and EQ curves. I'm adding filter after filter, trying to engineer away every imperfection. There's this clicking noise I keep hearing in the episode, so I add another filter. My voice sounds echoey. Need another filter. Too much breathing going on. Let's try this filter. I'm literally trying to engineer my way out of vulnerability. And the whole time, I'm telling myself this is necessary. This is what professional podcasters do. If I'm going to put something out publicly, it needs to be perfect. It needs to be my best work, the very best work I'm capable of. Because somewhere in my mind, I'm still thinking that this podcast itself is the thing that's tied to my success. Like if the audio isn't pristine, the whole experiment fails. If there's clicking or popping noises, then I'm clearly playing around in amateur hour. So, did I re-record episode 1 for the 11th time? No. I ran out of time. I had to go into the university. But Thursday morning, when it was time to record episode 3, I was back at it with my foam panels, with my new Adobe Audition software, ready to add all my filters. And this thought drops in. What am I doing? This is my pattern. Anytime I feel insecure, I get hypercritical and obsessive about perfection. I try to professionalize my way out of being seen. I add layers and filters and processes, thinking that if I can just make it good enough, polished enough, professional enough, then it will have been worth my time. And more importantly, then I'll be worthy of success. But that is so backwards. The same thing happened with Instagram. I'm just now returning to Instagram after a summer break because things were feeling very transactional to me. Before I took that break, I had highlight reels that took hours to organize. I was messing around with Canva templates that were taking me 45 minutes to customize the font and get the spacing and try to make everything visually perfect. I was making everything so complex that it became a job I didn't want to show up for. Now I'm back on Instagram doing my September experiment. I'm just screenshotting thoughts directly from my notes app and posting them. No design, no filters, just my raw thoughts on a plain background. And they're working. Meanwhile, here I am trying to turn this podcast into some pristine production, just like I did with my Instagram posts. So the pattern is clear. I turn everything into a job that needs to be perfectly performed instead of building a business that needs to be authentically managed. I love to take a process and complicate it because it gives me something to fixate on. So Thursday morning, recording episode 3, I made a decision. I stripped away all the filters, every single one, just my raw voice, whatever comes through, comes through. And you know what happened? All those clicking noises that I could not figure out how to eliminate, they were gone, like totally gone. The problem was never my voice. The problem was me trying to fix my voice. It's like this. Filters for your voice are like masks for your appearance. They might smooth things out, but they are stripping away the full resonance. And the resonance is what carries the energy, your personal signal. That rawness is the signal. That's when another thought hit me. Wait a second. This podcast is not my audience. The energy is my audience. I have had to sit with that one several times. The podcast is just documentation. The podcast is just evidence that I'm doing the work. It's my weekly check-in with myself and whoever wants to listen in. But I had been confusing the documentation with the thing itself. Here's what I had to decide this week, and I had to decide it about 47 times. The podcast is not the product. The business I'm building is the product. The podcast is like when you work with a coach. The coaching call isn't the work. The coaching call is where you report what happened, you process what you learned, and then you declare what you're going to do next. But the actual work happens between the calls, between the check-ins. I have a long-standing history of trying to make my coaching check-ins impressive. So the same thing was happening here. I was trying to make sure that you knew how much effort I was putting in. I was trying to create a compelling podcast instead of just telling the truth about what's happening. That's exhausting. That's the exact opposite of my objective. I'm done proving myself. Or let's be real, at least I'm done with this current layer of having to prove myself because we are always uncovering new layers. I'm sure this will return in my life in some shape or form. So the experiment isn't Can I make a perfect podcast that people really want to listen to? The experiment is, can I build something so undeniable that reality has to deliver it to me? The experiment is, can I show up raw and real and trust that the energy itself is enough? The podcast is just the vehicle to capture the experiment, to capture the process. So what does this actually look like going forward? First, I did not and I will not re-record episode 1. Even though only 5 people have heard it so far, even though I hedged my bets 5 different ways, even though it makes me cringe, that's the real documentation of where I was in that moment. That's the truth of starting. We all fucking start somewhere. This is what it looks like. Second, no more filters, no more foam panels, no more midnight Adobe tutorials. If you hear my air conditioner in the background, you hear it. If my voice cracks, it cracks. If there's a dog snuffling in the background, that's Lala, and she's contributing her own energetic support to this whole endeavor. This is real life, not a production. Third, I'm treating this podcast exactly like my notes app on Instagram. Raw thoughts, real time, no polish. The same energy that makes those screenshots work is the same energy that's going to make this work. So, do you want to know the exact thought that I decided to program into my mind to upgrade this pattern? Here's the ones I tried on for the best energetic fit. I had, I'm running a fucking business here, not a podcast. I had, my authority comes from my truth, not my production value. I tried, the mess is the message. I hated that one. And I tried, raw is more powerful than rehearsed. For me, this week, I kept returning to, I'm running a fucking business here. That was on repeat. Every time I started to obsess about the podcast quality, I reminded myself, business, not podcast, business. So let me be crystal clear about what's happening here. I am building $1 million business, period. Not maybe, not hopefully, not if everything goes right. I'm fucking building it. And this podcast is documentation of that build. It's proof that I'm showing up. It's accountability that I'm doing the work. It's the weekly evidence that I'm not bullshitting myself. But the podcast is not the business. The podcast is me showing you the business being built. I already feel so much lighter just saying it like that. People don't need to hear another perfectly produced podcast. They need to see someone actually doing the thing, building the thing, becoming the thing in real time with all the mess, all the uncertainty, all the course corrections. They need to see that you can build something massive even when your first episode only gets 5 downloads and you want to hide under a rock. They need to see that success isn't about getting it right. Not the first time, not the second time, not the 80th time. It's always about catching yourself in your patterns and choosing differently, over and over, 47 times a day if necessary. So the universe didn't want me to re-record episode 1. The universe wanted me to see that I was about to betray my very own experiment. The universe wanted me to choose. Are you going to build a business or are you going to perform success? I choose building every single time, even when it's messy, and especially because it is messy. Look, I don't know what's going to happen next week. I have no idea what pattern is going to pop up, but I'm going to catch it and I'm going to install an upgrade. That is the whole point of this experiment. It's real time, it's raw, it's unpredictable. But I do know this. Every week, I'm going to get clearer on what actually matters. And what actually matters is not the polish or the production or the perfect delivery, even though it feels like it. What matters is that I'm here, building, documenting, choosing the business over the performance every single time. If you're still here after all of this, after hearing about my foam panel fortress, after witnessing me almost re-record everything, after watching me strip away all the filters, then something is working. And thank you. Thank you. The energy is finding its people, and we're just getting started. Next week, I will tell you what happened, whatever it is. Until then, it's time for me to carry on with running a fucking business here. Go bet on yourself.